everybody! This week we're going to talk about when Jesus walked on water. And then we're also going to talk about how we walk with Jesus in our lives. Your activity this week in your devotional is a prayer where you go throughout the places you go during the day and think about how you should be in them and how Jesus relates to them and what he can do to help us in each of those places. So that's how this lesson kind of relates back to that devotional this week. But our craft this week is a flip-flop that's all talking about walking with Jesus. So go ahead and listen to the story. After feeding over 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fishes, Jesus told his disciples to get in their boat and go ahead of him to the other side of Lake Galilee. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Night fell, and out on the lake the disciples were in trouble. The wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy seas. At 4 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came to them, walking on the water. They screamed in terror, for they thought he was a ghost. But Jesus immediately spoke to them. "Don't be afraid!" Peter shouted, "If it is really you, Jesus, tell me to come over to you, walking on the water." "All right," Jesus replied, "come to me." Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water to Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind, he was afraid. He began to sink in the water and cried out, "Lord, save me!" At once Jesus put out his hand and took hold of him. Jesus said to Peter, "You have so little faith. Why did you doubt?" When Jesus and Peter got into the boat, the wind stopped blowing. Those in the boat worshipped Jesus, saying, "You really are the..." So in this story, Jesus' disciple started to sink because he got afraid. And when he got afraid, he lost his faith in Jesus and that he was going to be safe. So he started to sink. That's kind of what happens in our lives. When we stop praying and stop thinking about Jesus in our lives, things get a lot harder for us. And that's why we need to try to keep Jesus in our lives. And one way we can do that is walking with Jesus. We can always be thinking about how Jesus would act and what Jesus would do in our lives, how we should act to be more like Jesus. We can do that in a lot of ways. We can think about how we treat others. We can make sure we're sharing. We can do nice, unexpected things for other people. And that helps to make our lives better and other people's lives better by walking with Jesus. So we're going to start to work on our craft. This week, for your craft, you'll need a pair of scissors, a marker, a piece of colored paper, and a good amount of yarn. The very first thing I want you to do is I want you to take your piece of paper and I want you to put your foot on it. And then you're going to trace around your foot. Yours will probably be a little bit smaller than mine. Once you have your foot tracing, go ahead and cut it out. You might want to make the end of it a little bit rounder. So here's mine cut out. After that, you're going to need to cut 6 pieces of yarn that are about a foot long. So there's 2 of mine, 3, 4, so I can get the cut, 5, and 6. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to tie 3 of your pieces of yarn together. Like I have already done here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my yarn that I tied together and I'm going to tape it down to the table. This will just make it easier. And then the next thing I want to do is I want to braid my yarn. So I'm going to go over and under until my yarn is all braided together. Once I have it pretty much down to the end, I'm going to tie it in a knot. Just like this. And then I'm going to do the same thing to my other 3 pieces of yarn. I'm going to go back to my sandal, and I'm going to take my braided pieces of yarn. I want to slide the first one through the hole that's all by itself. And then I'm going to slide that same end through one of the holes on the side. This might be a little tricky. You might have to tear your paper a tiny bit more to make it go through. And then that is part of our sandal. I'm going to pull mine a little tighter. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my other one. I'm going to slide the first part through the first hole. And then I'm going to slide that same end through the next hole. And you might see I have some extra yarn left over. But I'm going to flip it over. And I'm going to tie these 2 pieces together like this. Just like you tie your shoes, except you're just going to knot it twice. And then you can cut off all the extra that you have. So the extra there, and the extra up here. Be careful not to cut off your knots over here. So now you flip it back over, and what does that look like? It looks like a flip-flop. So this story, we talk about walking with Jesus. So that's what I'm going to put on my flip-flop. Walking with Jesus. So that's what the disciples needed to learn to do in this story. They needed to learn to trust and walk with Jesus in their lives. How can we do that? We can go to church, we can pray, we can accept Jesus into our lives, and we can always make sure we're thinking about what is best for us, what's best for other people, how we can love our neighbor, and what Jesus would want us to do. Hey everybody, I hope you had fun working on your craft this week. I'll hope to see you in Sunday school on Sunday. Bye!